Sarvapin Vyasam Before hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, we should first run. I'll use it looking at it. I cheat looking at it. Before hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, we should first offer respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, to Narayana Rishi, the Supreme Human Being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, and unto Shri Vyasadeva, the author. So you get better and better and better, and then you get worse and worse and worse. Then there's one that I always have to look at. See, Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna.
Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna.
Punyashravana Kirtanaha.
Punyashravana Kirtanaha.
Vidyantasto Hibadrani.
Vidyantasto Hibadrani.
Vidunoti Saritsatam.
Vidunoti Saritsatam.
Must be learning that one. Okay.
Shri Krishna.
I can't say that in English. Okay, keeping his keys. Okay. The Sri Krishna, the personality of God, who is the paramount and super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire from material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. And the part of the line after the last one was before hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very needs of conquest. That's an important part of the verse. And then, Nashtapreshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama-shloke Bhakti Bhagavati Naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all of his toilsome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, whose praise with transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. I have a little book and I keep it below. Nobody knows how much I look at it. Okay, I set this. You want it?
Yeah.
You know, you can get the Vedas. You can get pocket Vedas on your cell phone, and it has all of Prabhupada's books on it. Oh. Sanskrit, word names, the whole business, all of Prabhupada's books. You can get it for what, like $13 or $14?
Yeah, I think about 14.
He can tell you how to do it.
Oh yeah, please do.
Yeah, it's really, really handy. So we're in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 16, how Parikshit received the age of Kali, text 10. So, let's repeat. Sutta Uvacha. Yidam. Parikshit. Kuru. Jangale. Avasat. Yada Parikshit Kuru Jangale Vasat. Yada Parikshit Kuru Jangale Vasat. Kalim. Parishtam. Nija. Chakravartite. Kalim Parishtam Nija Chakravartite. Nishamya. Vartam. Anatipriyam. Tataha. Nishamya Vartam Anatipriyam Tataha. Shavasanam. Samyuga. Chandir. Adade. And E at the end. Adade. She just figured out the E. Oh.
Yeah.
Sharasanam Samyuga Shandir Adade. Sharasanam Samyuga Shandir Adade. Sutta Uvacha. Yada Parikshit Kuru Jangale Vasat. Kalim Parishtam Nija Chakravartite. Nishamya Vartam Anatipriyam. Nishamya Vartam Anatipriyam
Vishiyam Vartam Anantipriyam
Sharasanam Samyuga Shambhiradade
Sarasanam Samyuga Samyuga.
One more time, I know that's right. Sutta Vacha
Sutta Vacha
Yada Parikshit Kuru Jangale Vasat
Yada Parikshe Kuru Jangale Kasat
Kalin Pravishtam Nija Chakravartite
Kalim Vasistam Chakravartate
Nishamya Vartam Anatipriyam Tataha
Nishamya
Sharasanam Samyuga Shambhir Adade Okay, I'm gonna try. Who's gonna try? You can try? You wanna try, Krishna? No?
So it's
Sutta Vacha
Sutta Vacha Yada Parikshe Kuru Jangale Kasat Kalim Vasistam Chakravartate Nisamya Vratam Tata Sarasanam Samyuga
Alright, so, word meanings. Sutta Vacha
Sutta Vacha
Sutta Goswami said
Sutta Goswami said
Yada
Yada
when
when
Parikshit
Parikshit
Maharaj Parikshit
Maharaj Parikshit
Kuru Jangale
Jangale
in the capital of Kuru's empire
in the capital of Kuru's empire
Avasat
Avasat
was residing
Kalin
the symptoms of the age of Kali
the symptoms of the age of Kali
Pravishtam entered Nija Chakravartite within his jurisdiction Nishamya thus hearing Vartam news Anatipriyam not very palatable Tataha thereafter Sharasanam arrows and bow Samyuga having gotten a chance for Shamdihi martial activities Adade took up. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Just slide it up and down.
Translation, I'll read the whole thing and then I'll take it in parts and you can repeat. Sutta Goswami said, while Maharaj Parikshit was residing in the everybody does it different, so that's why some people want the parts first. Sutta Goswami said, when Maharaj Parikshit was residing in the capital of the Kuru Empire, the symptoms of the age of Kali began to infiltrate within the jurisdiction of the state. When he learned about this, he did not think the matter very palatable. This did, however, give him a chance to fight. He took up his bow and arrows and prepared himself for military activities. So please repeat. Sutta Goswami said, while Maharaj Parikshit was residing in the capital of the Kuru Empire, the symptoms of the age of Kali began to infiltrate within the jurisdiction of the state. When he learned about this, he did not think the matter very palatable. This did, however,
give
give him a chance to fight.
him a chance to fight.
He took up his bow and arrows
He took up his bow and arrows
and prepared himself for military activities.
and prepared himself for military activities.
Purport. The state administration of Madhava-priya was so perfect that he was sitting in his capital peacefully. But he got the news that the symptoms of the age of Kali had already infiltrated into the jurisdiction of his state, and he did not like this news. What are the symptoms of the age of Kali? They are 1. Illicit connection with women. 2. Indulgence in meat eating. 3. Intoxication. And 4. Taking pleasure in gambling. The age of Kali literally means the age of quarrel, and the above-mentioned 4 symptoms in human society are the root causes for all kinds of quarrel. Madhava-priya heard that some of the people of the state had already taken to those symptoms, and he wanted to take immediate steps against such causes of unrest. This means that at least up to the regime of Madhava-priya, such symptoms of public life were practically unknown, and as soon as they were slightly detected, he wanted to root them out. The news was not palatable for him, but in a way it was, because Madhava-priya got a chance to fight. There was no need to fight with small states because everyone was peacefully under his subordination. But the Kali Yuga miscreants gave his fighting spirit a chance for exhibition. A perfect Kshatriya king is always jubilant as soon as he gets a chance to fight, just as a sportsman is eager when there is a chance for a sporting match. It is no argument that in the age of Kali such symptoms are predestined. So, if so, then why was there preparation for fighting such symptoms? Such arguments are offered by lazy and unfortunate men. In the rainy season, rain is predestined, and yet people take precautions to protect themselves. Similarly, in the age of Kali, the symptoms as above mentioned are sure to infiltrate into social life. But it is the duty of the state to save the citizens from the association of the agents of the age of Kali. Madhava-priya wanted to punish the miscreants indulging in the symptoms of Kali, and thus save the innocent citizens who were pure in habit by culture of religion. It is the duty of the king to give such protection, and Madhava-priya was perfectly right when he prepared himself to fight. So, Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanam Jnana Shalakaya Chakshur Undalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance. My spiritual master opened my eyes with a torch of knowledge. Offer my respectful obeisances unto him. By the way, that little verse that I just said is, if you see your Bhagavad Gita as it is, the introduction, the first page of the introduction, starts with these, it's right here, starts with these different verses to prepare the way. So, just cluing you, that's where that verse comes from.
Okay.
And the ones that said before I started reading the verse, they came from the first canto in the second chapter. And second chapter of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam is all about glorifying the Bhagavatam, all about all what's wonderful about how you progress in spiritual life, how it's the essence of everything. So we recite those verses and then this one too. So anyway, again, spontaneous. Let's see what spontaneously happens here. This is an important point to me. It's really struck out. Sometimes we do argue maybe I'm a lazy and unfortunate person, because I would also think of the same argument that, well, why fight the age of Kali if it's predestined? In the age of Kali, it's coming, so why fight? But actually, yeah, we're supposed to fight those things. We're supposed to resist those things. We're not supposed to just surrender to them. So, and be helpless. That's why in any religion there are moral principles given, but especially in Krishna consciousness, we have the 4 regulative principles, which are against these 4 things that are set out as root causes of quarrel. So we have indulgence in illicit connection with women. So therefore we have the principle, no illicit sex. Then there's indulgence in meat eating. We have the principle, no meat eating. And intoxication, we have the principle no intoxication. Taking pleasure in gambling, we have no gambling. So in fact, when you get initiated, you take a vow to follow those. We call them the four regs, the four regulative principles. Sometimes they're called the four regulative principles of freedom. And although they restrict your activities in the Kali Yuga eye, you don't get to do these things anymore. They're actually principles of freedom, because then we are free from the bad reactions of those things. So which is good. So we become more. If you do these things, you just stay enmeshed in the consciousness that I'm this body, and my pleasures are short term, and I have to fight for them like that. So we say like addicted to our sense gratification. So we say that we make these vows, and if you become a Hare Krishna, you start by following these vows and go up to 16 rounds in your chanting. And then when you're stabilized in it, if you have found a guru that you like and feel some connection, he's accepted you, then you get initiated. And then you promise these things. So for the rest of your life, then you promised to follow the regulative principles and chant your 16 rounds. So that gets us up, it said that gets us up to the level of human society. So if we don't follow these principles, we're just following our senses like animals. And animals can't help it, but humans can help it. Humans can make a different choice. So look around you, so many humans are now making a different choice. And the danger is to go back down into the animal species, because there's reincarnation and souls can be in any kind of body. Depends on what kind of consciousness, what kind of karma, what kind of attachments and wishes and desires. Sometimes an animal body will give you the chance to do something you really want to do and do it more naturally. And sometimes, you might want to fly, or you might want to have a lot of, whatever things people want. An animal body might give you the opportunity to do it more naturally. And also, the animal body can give you a chance to get some karma. So if you eat a lot of meat in your life, then you get to be a cow or something, maybe many times, and get the karma. So it's not very good if you get an animal body that gives you the sense gratification you want. Okay, fine, but then you're going to have to die. You're going to be eaten by something, most likely, and die some violent death, or some terrible like starvation or whatever animals may go through, sickness or something. But then you have to die. So the idea is to be free from death. Srila Prabhupada said, I've come to free you from death. Not that we don't have to die out of this life, but this should be the last time we have to die. And people in a modern world think there's only one life, and they don't like to think about death. So that doesn't make a lot of sense to free me from death. Maybe I won't die. I'm going to take my vitamins and stuff. This is the kind of the mentality. And so they don't realize that, like I didn't believe in reincarnation when I first came. That was a little trouble spot for me. I didn't like to think about that part. And when I accepted everything else, it was like 4 months before I read about it, was willing to read about it, learn about it. And during that time, somebody told me, they say, maybe this is your last birth. I thought, well, I sure hope so. That's what I thought. There won't be another. There wasn't supposed to be another one. I was told before there was never going to be one. Now all of a sudden I got to learn there is. So it was hard for me to understand that. But now it makes perfect sense, of course, because it's perfect truth. It's knowledge. The soul is eternal, and bodies are temporary. The soul can be in any kind of body. Still the same soul, still the same center of consciousness, but the computer's different, and the senses are different, and the instincts are different. Instincts, by the way, are not necessarily genetic. Instincts are memory from previous life, subconscious memory. Like an animal mother has the instinct to care for babies. Well, how many times was that soul in a female body having babies? So there is that subconscious memory, and also the guidance of Supersoul in the heart. The Supersoul is there with the soul everywhere. So we leave the spiritual world by free choice that we didn't want to sometime ages and ages and ages ago that we cannot possibly trace out. We decided individually and independently of everything, no influence on us. There's no influences in the spiritual world. Somehow, by totally free choice, we decided we don't want to serve God. We'd like to be like Him. You know, Krishna's so wonderful and attractive, and He's the center of everything. And I'd like to try that, you know. So it's a compliment. It's a, what is it? The sincerest form of flattery is imitation, or something like that. But still, it's an unwillingness to serve Krishna. So we are put in the material world, and then we get all different kinds of bodies. We can't remember our course through the material world. But this sentence start with. I'm saying this, but I don't remember why. What did it start with? Can go up and down anyways in the spiritual world depending on our desires.
You were saying you didn't believe in reincarnation.
Yeah, that was a little bit back. But it makes sense now because, and we can be, the soul can be in, it's the same central point of consciousness, but just a different, what instincts are, talk about that. Super soul. Okay, this is my point here, that we left Krishna, but Krishna did not leave us. And we can't see Him because there's a curtain, because we don't want to serve Him. However, we can't go anywhere without Krishna because He's in our heart as the super soul. And so He's always guiding and always, there's in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a section about super soul, and in one of the purports, Srila Prabhupada says that intelligence is the form direction of super soul. And that sentence means it's the form in which super soul gives direction. Because when we are totally covered over by illusion in the material world and identifying with our body and thinking we are matter and trying to please our senses or somebody else's senses that are matter, we are only able to understand matter. So in the Bhagavad Gita, there's 8 elements of matter. 3 of them are subtle. There's earth, water, fire, air, ether. The scientists can measure all those things, like solid, liquid, combustion or electricity, which is movements of electrons around, movements of atoms, and air, and ether, which is space. So those things can be measured by science, but then there's 3 more that can't be measured by science because they're subtle matter: mind, intelligence, and false ego. So mind is that goes back and forth. I like this, I don't like that, I'm thinking about this, I'd like to do that, I'm willing to do it, I'm going to do it. No, that's mind. Intelligence gives you discrimination, but intelligence is the super soul's direction. The super soul shapes the matter, subtle matter of intelligence to guide us, because we can't hear super soul because there's a curtain, and we're conditioned to only understand matter. So therefore, super soul guides us through intelligence. Animals have it too, but they have certain limit. You know, their intelligence may be like, where might food be, or something like that. Or maybe I shouldn't go there, it's dangerous. So animals have some intelligence, and super soul is helping them and guiding them through that intelligence. So also humans, but we can understand a lot more things. So sometimes we say, consult our intelligence. We consult our intelligence. And who are we consulting? So we are consulting with Super Soul. And also we have the word And I don't know what to say, I might say is another way of saying Om, in which we are taking a minute to consult our intelligence. So we're saying Om to the Super Soul within, blindly, not knowing, but hoping that we find some answer here, what we're going to say next. And He's helping. So we say and then we continue. So we have not gotten very far in our leaving of Krishna. He's come with us, but we can't see Him. How to get back to where we're qualified to see Him is a lot of surrender to the pure devotees teaching us, a lot of practice of devotional service, a lot of decision within ourselves to stop this and do this instead. And before that curtain's going to be lifted. It's a long journey, not a long journey back to Krishna, because he's right here, but a long psychological journey of our own that before we get purified, we have to be very determined and really desire Krishna, because he's not going to, and Maya is his servant. Maya is his energy of his illusory potency. Maya is his servant, and Maya is not going to let us back to Krishna and pester him with our material attachments, etc. So therefore, we have a curtain, an illusion. And the illusion is so strong that we actually think we're matter when we're spirit soul. Spirit soul is so much stronger than matter that only something the size of maybe a molecule or an atom is who we really are as a soul. In the spiritual world, that soul is expanded into a whole form and activities, personality, but now shrunken into something the size of an atom, animating the entire body full of atoms of matter with consciousness. So spirit is so much more powerful than matter, but it's covered over by illusion, which is more powerful than a little spirit soul. And so therefore we foolishly think we are matter and think our happiness is in there. How incompatible can that be? It's so dumb that I'm this lump of dead flesh and I'm going to get my pleasure out of this. Just keep trying to push on that flesh and get some pleasure. So it's a long ways to understand ourselves as spirit soul. Yet immediately we can find the soul within. Immediately we can find our soul. So it's the central point of consciousness. It's that invisible I that doesn't change no matter who you think you are and what your mind is doing. I change my mind. Who's I? We eventually think we are the mind, but actually we change our mind. So who's I? So I is that central point of consciousness. That if you think back to like your first day of school, there you are. That I is there, observing and thinking about it. Same I now as we're older, observing and thinking about it. That's the soul. We can find that, but to disentangle it. Really hard, because we have so many attachments and so much, effects of karma. Even though once we start doing devotional service, karma is stuck, but the fan blades, when you unplug it, it's still turning for a while. So we still have effects from previously that we're dealing with. Effects that were created a long time ago. Maybe young adulthood or something before we knew about Krishna consciousness. We make choices in life that we're still affected by, even though we're now doing things correctly and not making new karma, and the karma we got from before is being reduced, but still the effects aren't finished turning yet. So we still have that, and there's so many effects. So it's a long, hard journey, and yet it's very easy. All we have to do is chant Hare Krishna, do some devotional service, get attached to Krishna, and get detached from our body. And this philosophy is very simple, and yet there are so many books, because there's so many ways to say it, and so many ways to detach ourselves from so many different kinds of attachments, so many different angles to come to the same ultimate truth. We're eternal spirit souls. We're not these bodies. We're eternal servitors of Krishna. Krishna is a wonderful person. We are individual persons. We have a loving relationship. It's very simple. Very simple, yet there's so much to read about it. It's rich. It's amazing. So, let's see, let me check on here. Is there anything else I need to talk about? I can talk about Kshatriyas wanting to fight. Okay. So, do you know about Varnashram? Know anything about it? Okay. Varnashram is a word combined of two parts. Varnashram is actually the name of the original Vedic civilization. It's the name within which this Krishna consciousness is protected and cultured and cultivated. It's the real name of Hinduism in a sense. So it's because it's the whole culture, and it organizes human society by 8 categories in a very natural way. 2 groups of 4. So the Varnas are types of workers. And Varnas occur, there's different types of people all over the world in whatever culture they occur. but to understand them correctly, to fully cultivate what they can be and how they should interact with one another, one has to understand varnashram. So the 4 types of workers are, starting from the top, the brahmanas. They're the fewest, and they're the most intelligent. They're supposed to guide society, but they have no responsibility except to teach and guide. In the old days, they could curse somebody really bad, but they really didn't get involved in. They just taught and guided and studied. And then the kshatriyas, they are the kings, administrators, managers, warriors. They're ready to fight the purposes of protection. And there get to be too many kshatriyas, they might have wars with each other, but they have to kill each other, and then they get to go to heavenly planets because they fought in the war faithfully and valiantly. So, anyways, but the king should be a good kshatriya, and the kshatriyas are guided by the brahmanas. The kshatriyas and brahmanas are like this, they're a team. But the brahmanas are aloof and they're guiding, and the kshatriyas are involved in the nitty-gritty so deep that in order to protect, they're ready to sacrifice their life. And they, being so involved in the nitty-gritty, they have a very strong practical intelligence, but they need the brahmanas for the moral and spiritual guidance. And then next down, the vaishyas, they are the producers. They're the ones who can take responsibility to produce food, take care of the cows, trade for goods and materials that are needed. They have that responsibility, so they take care of the wealth and the production of society. And then the Shudras are the biggest group. They are like, in modern words, they're the employees. They're the servants. They may be skilled, they may not be skilled, they may be unskilled labor, they might be skilled labor, they might be able to fix your car or something like that, or your computer even, but they are not responsible for food and trade of necessary items for wealth. They're not responsible for protecting anybody. They're not responsible for guiding spiritually. So those are Shudras. So they accept the guidance from others. So then the other part is the ashrams, varna ashram. So ashram means the stage of life. Start as a celibate student, then householder, then retired, and then those who can qualify totally renounce, and they're the sannyasis, they're monks for life, and they go around preaching, totally independent and totally simple. Totally dependent on Krishna, independent of humans and simple. And this is the Varnashram society, and if all society understands their role according to their nature, first you got to understand your nature. We are a lot confused in the West. You got to understand our nature and understand the duties and qualities we should be cultivating and responsible for, then and how we should relate to each other and work together. Then society settles into place in a good way that supports Krishna consciousness. There's such a thing as asuric varnashram that's atheistic, and it's only the material plane, but it tends toward casteism. And instead of by real qualities, it'll tend to peg people and so on. People may be trapped in it, which is what happens now in India. So nobody wants a caste system. So this is not the caste system. So Dayadi Varnashram is Varnashram centered on Krishna. It's for everybody. It's help everybody grow in devotional service. So this is the real culture. And we have, actually Prabhupada gave us all the spiritual and practices and knowledge, and he said he didn't have time to really teach us Varnashram. It's in his books, there's the guidelines, but we still have to learn it. So we're, past few years, more and more awareness that as a movement we have to develop and understand it. We have to somehow grow Varnashram to complete the whole Vedic culture and the whole Krishna consciousness. Because it supports. It's an earthly plane that supports the spiritual. So anyway, Maharaj Parikshit was a good king, and kings are itching to fight, but because they have that kind of energy that makes them ready to fight to protect. And he didn't have any fight because everybody was peaceful. He wasn't just going to go clobber the next kingdom because they were peacefully serving. But we found out, some miscreants are are doing Kali Yuga things. I'm going to go and fight this. So he went forth to seek out the bad guys. So you know, they have it in the nature, so they get happy when they get a chance to do it. But they aren't going to do it just to clobber somebody. Like nowadays we don't have any real Kshatriyas hardly. We just have some shooters playing the role in our governments. We don't have any qualities at all. And they're just out there doing things wrong. So, with no knowledge of the spiritual. So now, I stop. Any questions or comments? No discussion or anything?
What time is it?
It's 23 after, according to this clock. Our clocks in the temple tend to be like 5 minutes past from cell phone time. I don't know why. What time does it say then?
8:20.
8:20 is 4 minutes past or something. So, in a few minutes if you want to dredge up something and ask about it. No? Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Our vision is thinking about something.
What, you got something? Okay.
When you're talking about the soul, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember reading Prabhupada's books that the soul is there because you know from that verse, to old age. That's why the body is developing, because the soul is there. So when you're first born, you're a little, a baby, and then you learn to walk and do all these things, and you develop into the different stages going to youth to old age. And that's Prabhupada would make that point that
Yeah, thank you. That's a good point, because it's only because of the presence of the soul that the body develops. So it's the soul inside causes the body to grow, because otherwise, nothing.
When you were talking about being reminiscent of home, I just never heard that.
Yeah, that was
I can't remember
interesting.
where I heard
Yeah.
that, though. I can't remember the source of that, but
It made sense.
it made so much sense to me. I don't remember where I read it. It just became part of my understanding immediately. So I don't remember where. But it's true. That's what we're doing.
That's what we do all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Consulting our intelligence. We have that expression in English, consult your intelligence. And Prabhupada explained why, because he said that the intelligence is the form direction of Supersoul. We cannot hear Supersoul speaking. He might be speaking all the time. We can't hear it.
Right.
So, and there's been some stories. Every once in a while you hear some story. Somebody in extremely dire circumstances, like read once one of these Reader's Digest story years ago. This girl is on this little boat, and somehow the sail breaks, a storm comes. She's pushed out to sea, so she's just alone on this little teeny boat. She's just cruising around looking at the fish. And then all of a sudden she's out to sea. And so huge waves clinging to this little boat. And she says, so, God, I just want to know if I'm going to die. Can you just tell me that? And he said, no. She heard it. So once in a while you get a story like that. Somebody has some experience that God speaks to them. How rare is that, though? And then does he continue? Do they continue hearing? Not a thing, no. So he just has a little heart for them. Okay, in this extreme circumstances, I'll break through the curtain that I got here, and I'll say a word for you, But you only get it like once. Only one person in a million gets this experience. So.
There's something else.
Yeah.
So, I remember reading Prabhupada's books that when we sleep, you have this subtle body, and that it actually, the soul body goes out, and that the super soul is. Have you heard that? Is maintaining the body while it's dreaming or doing.
I have not heard that. I always heard there was this silver cord that connects the body and the subtle body, the astral body, that they talk about. So, yeah, Prabhupada did say that sometimes we travel. Sometimes we meet somebody in a dream and work on something. I know that I've had some dreams about people that are all mushed. It's not really clearly that person. And once in a while I have a dream where I wake up feeling like that was clearly that person. I had some contact. I could feel that person's presence. And so I think that maybe I have truly experienced that. But wandering around in my dream, I encounter somebody with whom I have something, to work out or something,
So then when Prabhupada talks about how we can be directed by Super Soul, how do you connect with Super Soul? Is there some conscious, like, I don't want to use the word exercise, but are you, if you're just receptive to that and like tuned into it? Because there are definitely devotees that are being directed by Super Soul.
Yeah, definitely.
So how is...
Well, once you've heard from the spiritual master, you hear from outside. You can't understand unless you consult your intelligence, not knowing anything, and get a little something that way, or if you have another religious tradition and you pray and you feel something leading. Otherwise, as devotees, we need to hear. To get this really clear, we need to hear first from the spiritual master externally before we can know what we're understanding, because our understanding of Super Soul's hints is kind of hit or miss, because the mind messes with it too. The mind puts an opinion to it. But if we hear from the spiritual master and study the scriptures, then that's external Super Soul and internal Super Soul. We start to become more aware. You can cultivate that by prayer and by listening in your heart, by chanting really well, listening to the names, by studying Prabhupada's books. You just cultivate that, right?
I mean, explain that the spiritual master is the external manifestation of the Super Soul.
Yeah. And how does that work? Well, because the spiritual master has Super Soul in his heart too, and he's more advanced, he's more tuned in. And he's also obeying the scriptures, and he's obeying his spiritual master, plus he's empowered. If he's taken responsibility to help others, then Super Soul will empowers him to know. I don't know if they always consciously aware that they might say just the right thing for a person, and they might not even know that it was such a right thing for that person, but Super Soul is there too. So
my kids and I went to Mayapur for the installation of Panchatattva, and we didn't get to witness this, but there's a part of the installation, it went on for 3 days, where someone, like it was, the pujaris or some of the gurus that were there for the 5 deities, that person placed his hand on the heart of the deity and chanted certain mantras so that the Super Soul went from the heart of that person into the heart of the deity. And when I heard that,
I never heard it put that way. Oh.
that was part of the ritual.
I say, we're never far from Krishna. We think we're far from Krishna, but we're never. It should be routine, understanding. Krishna's right here all along, of course. Actually, Krishna's in every atom. So even the statue, before it's an installed deity, it's a statue, Krishna's in every atom anyways. And in fact, because the statue is carved like Krishna, it's perhaps a little more so. But then the installation moment, the Super Soul passes from, but the Super Soul is one everywhere. And
never contaminated or anything.
Never.
By being in that
never.
body or that worm body or...
Never contaminated and one. It's not. It says in Bhagavad Gita, it appears that there are many Super Souls, because if everybody was a yogi and could see Super Soul in their heart, which is what the yogi meditates for, it's proper understanding of the yogi meditation, then everybody would see their own Super Soul, right? And they would see like, well, there's a lot of Super Souls. But actually there's only one. Is one, but manifesting individually to each one. Big mystery to understand. All you can do is grow in it, and it's based on devotion. You can't understand intellectually very well. There'll be something wrong or something missing, but by devotion, the real understanding grows. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, within the heart, I shine the lamp of knowledge. So, of those who are devoted to serving me. So.
We're so fortunate. When we sit here and have these conversations, I just get overwhelmed by, our good fortune. How Prabhupada has made that good fortune by making this all available. It's just, it's overwhelming. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
can I ask you one more thing?
Yeah,
You're almost ready to go.
no, that's good.
When you're talking about the super soul, so I could be wrong, my understanding is sometimes it's like an inner voice, and I'll tell you, now you should go do this, you should go do that. And sometimes when I don't do that, then I realize later, oh my God, I should have done it.
But the inner voice, it's a feeling, or are you hearing the words? What are
Both is words, feelings.
the words feel like you hear them, or the words feel like there's something in your mind? Just asking. Because it could be super soul either way, but
I feel, it's like a feeling, I guess, or, you know, or,
yeah.
or sometimes it's actually words.
And sometimes the words, it feels like it might just be your own mind, right? But then there's such a thing as actually audio hearing from super soul. Like I'm saying, that's not so common. There are actually stories of people who converse with the deities, and the deities talk back. But Prabhupada said that too, didn't he? He said the
He
deities were
was
talking.
talking to group meeting, talk with each then.
So there's one story the deity walked somewhere, but he told the devotee, don't turn around or I'll stop right there. So he followed, he walked behind the devotee all the way to another village, long ways, days. And the devotee just couldn't look, he just had to not look, and the deity, he could hear the ankle bells. The deity was walking behind him. Finally arrived at the village and he turned around and the deity was there, not moving anymore, because he looked. You know, that was the deal. But that deity had talked with him, and he said, oh, so what is it? The deity was witness to a promise, and he wanted the deity to come and prove. And so the deity said, well, deities don't walk. And the devotee said, well, deities don't talk either, but you're talking.
So he can talk.
Yeah. So the deity agreed to come. So that was a very great story. Some generations ago in India. So, okay. All those who Srila Prabhupada, all those who Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you.